The life of billionaire Marc Rich, the legendary king of oil, is worthy of an exciting Hollywood script. Recognized as one of the most influential commodity traders in history, Rich transformed the oil industry by introducing the spot oil market. This revolutionary innovation broke the status quo, which had long been controlled by the powerful cartel known as the Seven Sisters. The company he founded, Glencore, has achieved annual revenues of over $200 billion in the past 3 years, making it one of the largest trading companies in the world. However, Rich's journey was fraught with controversy. Rich conducted business with countries such as Iran, Libya, Cuba, and South Africa, even when they were under U.S. economic sanctions. In 1983, he fled to Switzerland after being indicted by the U.S. government on charges of tax evasion, fraud, and illegal trading. For 18 years, he was among the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives. In a twist that sparked further controversy, on his last day in office on January 20, 2001, President Bill Clinton pardoned Marc Rich. The pardon caused public outrage and political scrutiny, especially due to the substantial contributions made by Rich and his associates to the Democratic Party. Before delving deeper into this remarkable story, please don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on the most fascinating business stories. Marcel David Rich, later known as Marc Rich, was born in 1934 in Antwerp, Belgium, into a family of Orthodox Jews. His father, David Rich, moved to Belgium in 1933, fleeing Nazi Germany. David had previously left the Austro-Hungarian Empire during World War I due to persecution of Jews. Antwerp was chosen by David and his wife Paula as it was a major commercial center with a large Jewish community. At the time, the city represented 80% of the world's diamond trading, with 90% of businesses controlled by Jews. However, David was unable to enter the lucrative diamond trade and instead focused on scrap, textiles, and footwear, providing security and comfort for his family. In May 1940, during World War II, David fled again with his family, driving to southern France to escape the Nazis. Indeed, just 8 days later, on May 18, 1940, Antwerp was overrun by the German army, and thousands of Jews were captured by the Nazis. Yet again, David Rich would need to start his life anew. After a failed attempt to move to Australia, the Rich family eventually resettled in the United States, establishing themselves in Kansas in 1941. There, they had to begin again from scratch. Marc struggled to fit in and make friends at school, always feeling like an outsider due to being Jewish, having a different accent, and being short in stature. After 5 years of working and saving money, his father managed to open a small jewelry store in 1946. The business thrived, and within a few years, David expanded operations into importing and exporting various products. With business booming, the family relocated to New York. At the age of 18, Marc Rich enrolled to study marketing at New York University in 1952, but soon realized he preferred practical experience over theory. A friend of his father arranged a job interview for him at Philip Brothers, then the largest commodity trader in the world, and he didn't hesitate. Philip Brothers, later known as Fibro, was founded by Jewish brothers Oscar and Julius Philip, who began trading metal commodities in 1901 in Hamburg, Germany. Trading in metal commodities had been dominated by European Jews since the 19th century, because for a long time, the only activities allowed to Jews were money lending or trading products. Ironically, this gave them a competitive advantage, creating a powerful network of connections worldwide. With the growth of industrialization in the 20th century, the demand for metals increased significantly, allowing Philip Brothers to open branches in other countries. At the U.S. branch in New York, Marc Rich learned everything about commodity trading, quickly rising through the company ranks. He held the position of metal trader. It was during this time he learned about international raw material markets and foreign trade with developing countries. He even traveled on business trips to countries like Bolivia, Cuba, and South Africa. In the 1960s, while managing Philip Brothers' office in Spain, Rich decisively entered the oil sector. At that time, the oil market was dominated by a cartel of 7 major oil companies, known as the Seven Sisters, which controlled about 95% of the market. This oligopoly bought crude oil from producing countries at a fixed price and controlled the entire value chain until the product reached the final consumer. Between 1948 and 1970, the price of oil remained stable around $3 per barrel. However, oil-producing nations were increasingly dissatisfied with the dominance of the Seven Sisters. The tipping point came in August 1971, when the dollar depreciated drastically, losing between 20 to 40% of its value after the United States abandoned the gold standard. Since oil was priced in dollars, this directly affected the exports of oil-producing countries. This situation triggered a wave of oil field nationalizations in the Middle East, giving OPEC growing power. However, there was a problem. Although countries now controlled oil exploration and production through their state-owned enterprises, they lacked the necessary know-how to market and distribute all that production. This is where Marc Rich and Philip brothers come into play. With strategic contacts in refineries, importers, and oil companies worldwide, they quickly became indispensable for oil-producing countries looking to sell their oil to the West. Producers focused solely on oil production, while Rich managed to connect supply with demand. At that time, without internet, cell phones, or Bloomberg terminals, the role of traders was even more crucial. They not only found buyers and sellers, but also managed credit and all the logistics required to deliver oil to the end customer. Marc Rich stood out as one of the pioneers of globalization, connecting oil buyers and sellers from around the world. Before him, it was only possible to negotiate long-term contracts at fixed prices with major oil companies. Thanks to his connections in countries like Iran, Libya, Venezuela, and others, Rich transformed oil trading, allowing for spot purchases based on the law of supply and demand. He made millions of dollars for Philip brothers, but his compensation was far below the value he generated for the company. In 1974, when he tried to negotiate a $500,000 bonus, Philip brothers' partners offered only $150,000. This led Rich to take his team and found his own company, Marc Rich & Company, in Zug, Switzerland. Without the bureaucracy of a large corporation, he took full advantage of the booming market of the 1970s. More aggressive, faster, and focused on long-term contracts, Rich quickly dominated the market. The first oil shock in 1973 due to the Yom Kippur War caused the barrel price to soar from $3 to $11. In the fiscal year of 1974, Marc Rich & Company earned $1 billion with a net profit of $28 million. By 1975, profits increased to $50 million, and in 1976, they reached $200 million. Rich summed up the situation simply: there was a shortage of oil in the market, and I had it to sell. Prices continued to rise in the following years. In 1979, the second oil shock occurred due to the Iranian Revolution, which caused significant instability in the country and a drastic drop in oil production from about 7 million to less than 1 million barrels per day. In November 1979, Iranian students stormed the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, holding 52 Americans hostage for 444 days, further escalating tensions between Iran and the U.S. As a form of retaliation against Iran, the United States announced strong economic sanctions against the country, further driving up the price of oil. With the sanctions in place, Western oil companies were prohibited from purchasing Iranian oil, one of the government's main sources of revenue. This left Iran searching for an intermediary to continue selling its oil, and once again, Marc Rich emerged as the right person at the right time. Although a naturalized American, Marc Rich's company was based in Switzerland, a neutral country. This allowed him to negotiate the purchase and sale of Iranian oil. Marc Rich & Company became the primary buyer of Iranian oil, which was sold at a discount due to economic tensions. Rich acquired approximately 60 to 75 million barrels of oil per year from the Iranian government, in what was at least an ironic business partnership, considering the ideological differences between Ayatollah Khomeini's regime and the Jewish billionaire Marc Rich. However, this practice did not go unnoticed by the American government. In 1983, after a lengthy investigation, Marc Rich was indicted on charges of 65 crimes, including tax evasion, fraud, and illegal trading with Iran. The charges alleged that Rich and his partner, Pincus Green, used a network of front companies and complex financial maneuvers to evade paying approximately $48 million in federal taxes and to conduct transactions with Iran in violation of the U.S. trade embargo. Rich was sentenced to 300 years in prison. Before he could be arrested, Marc Rich fled to Switzerland, a country that does not have an extradition treaty with the United States. Despite paying $200 million to settle the charges, he remained on the FBI's most wanted list from 1983 to 2001. During this time, he continued his life in Switzerland, managing his businesses and maintaining a relatively low profile. Despite facing charges and being on the run for an extended period, Marc Rich continued to thrive financially, expanding his businesses and maintaining significant influences in various spheres, including his relationships with Israel and the Mossad intelligence service. In 2001, on the last day of his presidency, Bill Clinton granted Rich a controversial presidential pardon, sparking outrage and suspicions of corruption, particularly because the billionaire had made substantial donations to the Democratic Party and even to Clinton's presidential library. An interesting fact about Rich's life is that he was one of the partners at 20th Century Fox in the 80s, but he managed to sell his stake in the company before being convicted of his crimes. Victim of a brain stroke, Marc Rich passed away in 2013 in Switzerland, spending his final years involved in philanthropic activities. He was 78 years old. Until 2010, 3 years before his death, his fortune was estimated at $1 billion. So, what is your view of this man's life? Do you believe he is more of a hero or a villain? Tell me your opinion in the comments. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.